ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 118 of Explode Your Expert Business Show, brought to you by GTeX.org.uk. I'm your host, Simone Vincenzi, the Expert Strategist, and this is the podcast for experts who want to become the ultimate authority in their niche while making an impact in the world. Today I have the pleasure to interview the one and only GTeX lifetime member, Caroline King. The topic is so many speakers, how do you stand out? So if you are a speaker, then you must listen to this episode until the end. However, before I let you know a bit more about what we are going to cover during this episode, I want to talk to the tool of the tool of the day. As you know, every single episode, I'm going to share with you a tool that I use to make my life and business better. And today, the tool is, probably have heard about this many times before, but I absolutely love it. It's called Spotify. It's an application that you can download on your laptop, on your MacBook, on your phone, and it helps you to listen to the music that you love everywhere. I love it because it helps me create playlists with all the music that I love. It suggests me playlist with genre of music that I love, and I'm using it consistently when I run my seminars, when I run my webinars. I'm using it consistently with my clients, and also when I'm going to have a workout. When I'm doing my basketball workout, I always have my hip-hop playlist playing in the background. So again, Spotify, there is no affiliation with this. There is not an affiliate link. It's just something that I use and can make your life better too. So Spotify, make sure that you check it out. The link is here in the show notes. Now back to the episode. As I said, today I'm interviewing our lifetime member, Caroline King, and today we're starting something new. I'm going to start doing 3 episodes a week and not anymore 2. How amazing is that? So every Wednesday, you're going to receive a new episode where I interview some of our members of our GTeX community. These are experts that are growing their business successfully, they're getting incredible results, and I interview them on what they're doing behind the scene to grow their business. And in particular as well, by sharing their area of expertise, and in particular with Caroline. She's an incredible speaker trainer. Caroline is the person that can take you from being just a talking head to speaker extraordinaire, so that your message has complete clarity and therefore more people will buy from you. Caroline can teach you to speak so that you could make the telephone directory sound interesting. And then, when you marry it with your expertise in your niche, you will light the touch paper that ignites your business. What an introduction, right? That's Caroline. Now, in this episode, we talk about why you should check out the traditional public speaking techniques and learn what really works instead. Why the audience is the most important ingredient when speaking, and how to deliver so that the human brain is enthralled by what you say instead of zoned out. You can read the interview transcript and get bonus resources here in our website, which is www.gtex.org.uk/episode-118. And there are going to be also the links to connect with Caroline King. Now, just before we start, remember that if you want to create 6 figures presentation and become awesome at selling from the stage without compromising with your integrity, I have created the Ultimate Selling from the Stage checklist, which is the most comprehensive checklist to create a pitch that sells without being a total douchebag. And also to receive daily support in your coaching and speaking business, join our private Facebook group, Explode Your Expert Biz. You can find both the links of the Selling from the Stage and the group here in the show notes. If you haven't subscribed to this show, first of all, why not? If it's the first time you're listening, I forgive you. If it's not the first time, subscribe right now. And also, Let me know. If you have any question, just contact me at simone@gtex.org.uk. Go straight into my inbox. All that I've said is written here in the show notes. So now it's time to get started, and it's time to hear it from Caroline King. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Biz Show. Today I'm here with the one and only one of our GTeX Lifetime members, Caroline King. How you doing, Caroline, today?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting me on.
Well, how could I not invite you? I mean, you are the person who takes speakers from talking head to speaker extraordinaire. And that's why I wanted to have this interview with you, Caroline, because I've seen the work that you've done with some of our lifetime members. And recently, actually, in the event that we did last night, it was, wow, incredible. But before we get started and share how speakers can not become, just holding a microphone and delivering a presentation, but really captivate the audience. Tell us a bit more about you.
Okay, so although I'm working with speakers now, I don't come from a public speaking background. I come from a performing arts background. So the first time I was on a really big theatre stage, a proper theatre with proper rate seatings and all those curtains and everything else, I was 5. So
Wow.
that's when it started. And basically, like a lot of small children, I probably said something along the lines, Mum, can I try dancing? Which is what I did. And one of the great things was that I did dancing and I did acting and I did singing. I played the flute, played the piano, and I always loved my lessons. I loved practicing. And the icing on the cake was the performing.
Right.
And I suppose what really got me is that later on when I went and trained to become professional, is that you've got to really love the process of it. You've got to really love actually doing all that practice and trying to make something really, really good. It's not just about the performance. By doing all of that other stuff, it makes the performance something extra special, something that you can't sort of do anywhere else. It gives you such a special feeling, especially with that kind of um, amount of effort and work and passion that you're putting
Mm.
into it. Because when you're a professional, when you're performing, it perhaps only takes up about 10% of what you ever do. So you've got to really love the rest of it. And that's one of the things I want to bring into the speaking world now. Because what I've noticed, because unfortunately I'm not a young spring chicken anymore, well into my 50s now, but what I've noticed over the last 35 years is that certainly in performing arts, if you don't love learning and refining, then if you're only there for the total, that supposed glory of
Yeah.
that performance, then actually the performance doesn't work.
No, it feels like the same in the expert industry. I mean, you find people that are starting as a speaker or as a coach or as a trainer because of the fame, because of the glory, because of the fact that they want to stand on a stage in front of 1,000 people and share their message. However, you gotta love the process because if you hate it, it's a long journey before you get there. So I think is the same with I see the parallel here between the performing art and as well the expert industry.
Absolutely, absolutely, most definitely. Because if you don't love what you're doing 90% of the time, then how can you make that performance extra special? And at the end of the day, the performance actually isn't about you, it's about the audience. At the end of the day, it's the audience that's come to see you for some reason. And if you can't make it special for them, if you can't give them the experience they're looking for, if you can't entertain them, if you can't give them the information that they're looking for, then what's the point? What's the point of you being on that stage?
Absolutely. I agree with you, Caroline. So now, Caroline, before we start sharing some tips, strategies, techniques, I have a question for you, which I never asked you because, I mean, for those of you guys that are listening or on iTunes or any other podcasting platform, or maybe you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook, then you have to know that Caroline is not only an incredible speaker trainer, is not only one of our lifetime members, but is also our incredible event manager. Now, all our events will not happen if Caroline would not be by our side, or they will happen, but it will happen in Simone's style, and you don't want to see that, right? So I have a question that I never, in the years that we've been working together, I never asked you this question, which is, what was the proudest moment that you had as a performer? You know, it doesn't have, it can be small or big, but as a performer, as your performing career, what was the moment where you said, wow?
Oh gosh. Do you know what suddenly has come to mind was a lunchtime recital I did in a beautiful Baptist church in Watford.
Hmm.
And I'd been there before, and they have a lovely lunchtime recital series. They always get a lot of people in the audience. And I was definitely on fire that day. Oh, absolutely on fire. And there's I'm just trying to think of the name of the song and I can't remember it, but it's by an English composer called Delius. And the song is like a fairy tale. So it's like a Cinderella or a Snow White type of thing. Perhaps a little bit more like a Rapunzel because it has more of that kind of quality to it.
Hmm.
And like anything else, it's a metaphor. And therefore, as you sing this song, because I was trained as a classical music singer, so that's what I was doing, it's about getting the message of it. But because it's a metaphor, there is a kind of personal element to it as well. And it's kind of, when you're a performer, you are putting it out there, and then it's up to the audience to decide what they do with it inside of themselves.
Yeah.
And I was doing this song, and it has some really poignant moments. The way the composers put together the chords at just the right moment, where certain types of feelings that you're hopefully going to feel as the performer is happening, and then you're communicating that to the audience. And there were 3 people in the audience, and tears were slowly starting to come down their cheeks. And something in the way that I performed that particular song and that particular metaphor for them really, really touched them.
And this, thank you for sharing, Caroline, of which I'm still always thinking about the parallel as a speaker, because we are performers, and
Yes.
the way we share our message gives the meaning to our message. And that's, I
Yes.
think, is a beautiful transition now to see how can we share this message in a great way, in an empowering way, in a way that uh, actually gets the audience to listen, but also to feel the emotions that you want to convey as a speaker.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what I've learnt over all those decades as a performer, but also as a teacher, because I was teaching actors and singers, is that there is a process within us. And the closer we keep that process to the human experience in terms of how we humans actually work, and then communicate it in such a way that the people who are listening to you, they're going to hear it in a very human way, but they hear it also with the limitations of our mind and our bodies. And so therefore you need to understand what that process is,
Mm.
because if you don't, then instead of having an audience that's enthralled by what you're doing, that is totally captivated, and really inside their brain they're saying to themselves, I want more of this, I want to hear more, this is such a great point. You see, once they start thinking in terms of the content you're saying, and no longer thinking about, oh my goodness, isn't this person boring, or why do they have to always say so deep in their voice, or why are they always speaking so quickly? You see, you want all of
Yeah.
those types of things out of the way of the audience's mind, so that everything you've learned as a technician, as a speaker technician, you're using all those skills to facilitate the content. And as soon as you do that, the audience starts going, oh, wow, isn't that a great point? I must write that down. And that's where we need to get to. And that's what I'm now passionate about doing within this industry. Because I have to tell you, when I first went to an event 6 years ago, it was a 3-day event, lots of speakers, some big names that you will have heard of from the international circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and went, oh, really? Ooh, okay. Oh, yes. Why? I was just gobsmacked. I just totally gobsmacked. And that's such a shame, because I know all these techniques that I've learned from the performing arts side would really, really help speakers and really power the audience through to the message that you're there to say. And that's the important bit.
So now the question is, where is the speaker training, the current speaking training failing speakers? Because, speaker trainings in our industry, they are crucial because that's how we become great speakers. And also they are very expensive. I spent a hell of a lot of money on speaker training, probably just on speaker training, more than £40,000. So where is the speaking training industry failing the speakers in terms of training now?
I think there are two things that I've observed over the last couple of years. One is how far away speaker training has gone from acting training. About 40 years ago, the two were very, very similar. We were
Right.
often teaching exactly the same techniques. Archetypes, for example. I've got 2 former students who are just about to graduate from 2 of our top drama schools in this country. And last year, to test this out, I went to see them and some of their friends. And I said, tell me what your training is around archetypes. And they went, archy what? They haven't even heard of the word. They had no idea what it is. But it is still very much the mainstay of public speaking training, not just in this country, but around the world.
Yeah.
And so I realized there's a big gulf that's opened up. And I'd like to see that gulf now being bridged, and that we can then move into the 21st century. So there's that. The second thing is, I think we're victim in this industry to the quick fix. Now, there are plenty of speaker training where you go and do your 5 days. You might even do 7 days in Bali or something like that. And there's plenty of those, and they're very expensive. Yes, they can throw all kinds of information at you, but what they can't do, even if they promise it, is turn you into an amazing speaker. It's a bit like Andy Murray
Mm-hmm.
going to a 5-day boot camp and learning everything there is to do about tennis. Of course you can learn everything to do about tennis. But then thinking, okay, I've learned everything there is to know about tennis. I'm going to go and win Wimbledon now. It
Good
doesn't
luck.
work like that. You've actually got to go out there and go, okay, so I remember what he said about a forehand. Let me have a go. Oh my God, that just didn't work, did it? Okay, so what do I need to do? Oh, I need a decent trainer. I need a decent coach. Okay, so the coach comes along and says, you need to kind of have it that angle. And as the ball comes in this way, it needs to be at this angle instead. And now you've got to practice all of those things. And that's just the forehand.
Yep.
And it's the same with speaking. And people want a quick fix. And in fact, at the event that we did last night, someone actually came to me and said, oh, I've just graduated from being a life coach, and I've got my certificate and everything else. And they've taught us how to engage people from the stage and this, that, and the other. And my heart sank. Because folks, actually, part of the thing of this podcast is about how you stand out. And I think one of the biggest things you do is go and get some really good training, practice that training, apply it, and then when you stand on that stage, you are a different type of speaker, because the skills are not there to show off the skills. The skills are there to show off you, your message, your knowledge, and what you can give to the world. That's how you stand out.
So, what are some of these skills, or what exercises can we do to become incredible speakers? What kind of things do we need to be aware of to become incredible speakers and start this journey? Because yes, I agree with you. It's not about the quick fix. I remember when I started speaking to the moment, to the way I'm communicating now. Oh, I mean, you have seen me at not at the very beginning, but you have seen me a few years ago, and the difference was huge. Why? Because there was training in between, as you suggested, and also I did more than 400 events by that time. So the practice makes you perfect. So what are some of the things that we can practice it, Caroline?
Okay, so one of the things I mentioned earlier on was about how the audience, in terms of their brain, you need to deliver to that brain so that it doesn't zone out. You see, we can't help and stop our brains from zoning out. It's part of being a human being. We can't stop it from happening. So we have to understand the process in terms of what our brain does, how it wants to receive auditory information. Simple as that. However, it just takes a little bit of work and understanding. So there's a kind of foundation level to this. So let's have a look at that first.
Yes.
In that, let me tell you a little story. So last year, I went to a business show in Somerset. It was the first one they've done for Somerset. So I went along and I did one of those.
For our international listeners, can you locate Somerset?
Okay, Somerset is in the southwest corner of the United Kingdom,
Perfect.
and it's about 30 miles south of Bristol. So if you
Brilliant.
happen to know where Bristol is. So I went along and we did one of these speed networking things, where you have about 20 seconds to go, and they go at you, and then you all stand up and move. And so it was all terribly exciting, and the rest of it. And I actually met another person called Caroline. And it turns out she does quite a lot of speaking. And we kind of got on and we decided, because we got aims and objectives for our being there, that we would meet up at the end. So we did, and we sat down, had coffee and talked. Now she has a particular medical condition, and she goes around to a lot of various different groups, support groups, and talks to them about it, shares her experiences, some of the decisions she's made and things like that. And I know that she's been really helpful to them. And she was telling me how she keeps her audiences engaged. So she says, oh, I might get them to suddenly do a little exercise, or they've got to talk to their neighbour. And I said, that's brilliant, because you're using interaction, and that's always welcome. I said, but you do realise that perhaps for shorter talks, where you've got to get information across, you can do the same thing but with your voice. And she went, really? And I went, yeah, really? Let me explain how it works. So I said, have you got a slide in your talk that's got about 4 or 5 different points on it? She went, yep, I have. Okay. So when you deliver the first point, you say it in a particular way. That's fine, not a problem. The audience is with you. The second point, you deliver it. Odds are on you're probably going to deliver it in a similar way. The audience is fine. They're still with you. Brilliant. The third time, same thing. That's your third point. I said, but the fourth point, even if it's the most important point of the slide, if you deliver it in the same way, the audience zones out because too much repetition, the brain goes, had enough, and it goes. It doesn't matter what the content is, it just goes. And she went, no, I don't believe that. So I dared her because she had a talk the next day in Gloucestershire. I said, I dared her, and I said, right, you get that slide and you deliver the first 4 points in the same way, and then on the fourth one you watch the audience closely, look in their eyes and watch the shutters come down. And she went, maybe. Anyway, I got a phone call the next day. She went, oh my goodness, Caroline, I did it, I tried it. Wow, oh my goodness, you were right. As soon as I did that fourth one, I could actually see all of those kind of shutters coming down in people's eyes. I couldn't believe it. So this is where we start from. So I call it, and we can delve into the power of 3.
Yes, please.
So if you take that example, 1, 2, 3 points in the same way, you still got your audience. The fourth one, they've gone. So on the fourth one, you've got to do something different. Please try and do something different that matches the words you're saying and the meaning. Okay, don't just do something different, but do something that matches. You do that, identifies that you're doing something new and therefore stays with you. So that fourth point is there. Your fifth point, you could go back to the way you delivered 1, 2, and 3, and you will keep them there. This is how it is. The other thing you've got to remember is that if you try and deliver number 1 in one way, number 2 in a different way, number 3 in a different way again, and number 4 in a different way, your brain goes, too much, please stop. And then it zones out. So it's actually a balance between the two things. You need some repetition.
Because that's what I thought. That's what I thought when you were saying the 4 points. I said, okay, so now I need to deliver the 4 points in 4 different ways. But what you're saying is you need to have some consistency and some repetition and some variety at the same time. Otherwise, in both situations, in one situation, you will confuse the audience. They will zone out because they're confused. On the other situation, they will zone out because they're bored.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's one of the things that speakers actually have to do for themselves, because if you're a singer, the way that music is actually written and composed takes this into account. So to a certain extent, as a singer, the work's done for me. But as a speaker, it's not. It's just words on a page.
Right.
You think about all of those songs that you know. You think about the new bits that come in, the bits that the repetition, the chorus comes back, and you like that because you can now sing along with it. And then you've got the next bit. Perhaps there's a bridge, an instrumental bridge, and yeah, you like that because now that's something a bit new and it keeps your attention. And that's what I want to bring in from performing arts. There's all of those kind of things, and they make such a huge difference if you're standing on stage delivering your message.
So now we talked about the variety and consistency in your message. Now what I would love to talk about, because that's something that you are incredible at, is mastering your voice. Because to do all these changes of pace, of tempo, or to create this variety and consistency at the same time, you have the most important tools that you have as a speaker, which is your voice. So can you give us a couple of exercises that you found to be incredibly beneficial for speakers to train their voice so they can be more interesting on stage?
Okay, so this comes into the section which covers all sorts of things, from perhaps pitch, in your voice, tone, the texture, and all these kind of things. I call it the bandwidth in your voice. And all of those things I've just mentioned have their own bandwidth. And if you put them all together, then quite often the bandwidth is very thin. And
Yeah.
that's when people sound a little monotonous. And what's a great thing about doing, yeah, exactly, and then they nod off. Um, what's the great thing about exploring your voice is you begin to know where the highest pitches are and the lowest pitches are. And as soon as you can do that, you can then match it to the words. So sometimes if you're saying a story and you're moving along with the story, etc., 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 and then you say, and of course he was sitting there and he looked at me and went, really? Now, can you hear how high I went?
Yeah.
Now, when I hear someone on stage do that, very rarely do they get to those types of pitches.
Yes.
And the thing is that in normal life, we would do something like that. We
True.
would say like that.
Really?
Exactly. And that's what the brain recognizes. And then it goes back to this, I said about, we've gone through all those points and everything else about the brain, but the brain is picking up on that. And then what it's doing is your voice is now mirroring the sentiment, the meaning of the words of the story. And as
Right.
soon as you start doing that, you then get alignment. So in terms of an exercise, pitch. Find out where the pitch in your voice, and it's a bit like a slide. I'm sure you went down a slide when you were a little boy. Yes. So exactly. So what you do is,
Whee!
yes. So this is exercises like this are not for show and are not for performing. Okay. But what it does is it gets you to explore. So it's a bit like you start at the top of your voice, you do it on a me sound, and you go, and now you're at the bottom of the slide.
Okay, let me give it a go.
Okay.
Me.
Okay, not bad, but I reckon you can probably go higher. So if you can go, yes. So this is what you need to do. You, when you breathe in a moment to do the me, I want you to pull your tummy in. I want you to, I know this sounds weird, I want you to think down and that the sound is going to come swinging out the top of your head.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
try. It's a little bit higher, but it's one of those things. The more you practice, we're back to Andy Murray now, the more you practice at it, the higher it will get.
Right.
And then you get all the way down. Now, the trick about going all the way down is that sometimes when we're trying to go down, we then push the voice. You must never push the voice. When you push the voice, you get problems. You get nasty little nodes on your vocal cords and polyps, and then surgeons like to come away and hack them off. And sometimes you recover from them, and sometimes you don't.
Oh, and
Ooh.
you don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. So when you get really low, you need the sound. You need to allow the sound to come out, not push the sound. Can you hear the difference?
Yeah, I can.
Push, and then you allow. And you muck around with it. Get a book out and read it and do it with all kinds of different pitching and this, that, and the other. And then start thinking in terms of your talk, how you can match the pitch of your voice to the meaning and the sentiment of what you're saying. And this is where we start. So the pitch is one thing. Pace, tempo in music, we call it, how fast you're going. So we are now back to this, what the brain likes. You do it all in one go, all at one pace all the time, and you keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. The brain goes, okay, can we do something? It's like you're driving along and you're ignoring every single traffic light, every single giveaway sign, and everything else. Okay, so we need some variety
Yeah, it's
in
a
it.
recipe for crash.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, again, if you look at your talk, which are the bits that need to go a little bit faster? Which are the bits where you need to go a little bit faster to get that climax?
Mm.
Okay. And then you need to pull back. And that is much more interesting. You also, as I say, you're aligning how you're doing things with that story, with that message. Therefore, it enhances the message. Therefore, the audience gets it better. They're more likely to take something away from it. So you can do things like that. So that's that. Then there's in music, we call them dynamics, louds and softs. A crescendo. You start really quiet and then you get louder and louder and louder and louder, and then, do you know what? The most important. Do you see what I did? I
Yep.
got louder, I got faster, I paused, and then you're going, oh, what's she going to say next? And
It's
that's
like
what
a
you want
cliffhanger.
your
Like,
audience to
I want to
do.
know. I want to know. I want to know.
Exactly. And that's how your audience are going to be
Right.
thinking. And you're creating this. You're creating their experience. You're creating being able to offer what you've got to give them in terms of your expertise and your knowledge and your information in the best way possible for the brain. I know that there is this thing in the public speaking industry where they go, no, I'm going to be authentic and I'm not a performer. Well, I'm sorry. You do have to be authentic. That's the first thing. It's a requirement, it's not a skill. I've actually heard people say, don't forget to practice your authenticity. What? You're either authentic or not. It's a state of being. It's not a skill. You
Either
need to
you're
have that.
lying or you're telling the truth. That's it.
Exactly. But if you don't take some of these other skills on, then you're just another person standing up there, a talking head.
I see. This was incredible value, Caroline. I personally loved all the exercise, and I can see when you speak at our events or when you do our speaker training with the other GTeX members, how they hang on to every single word that you say. And it's something that is acquired through mastery. So this is a really call to action to every single speaker which is listening right now. If you do presentations, make sure that you take this seriously, because if you don't take this seriously, if you don't take your voice seriously, if you don't take your performance seriously, then all your message will be wasted, or if not all, a big part of it. So don't make this mistake. Now, before we wrap up, Caroline, I would love to ask you, how did being a GTeX member helped you and your business?
The reason I joined was because of a friend, the lovely CJ.
Yeah, we
And
love CJ.
I know CJ's wonderful. CJ's our techie guy in GTeX, and he's just brilliant, and he does all my tech now because, as
Yeah,
you
you guys will hear the interview with CJ's in a few weeks, so stay tuned for that one.
absolutely, you need someone like that in your life, most definitely. Uh, and he lives in London, and obviously I don't. And he was telling me all about the events that he was going to, and then he joined. And I was thinking, God, I could really do with something like this down here in Somerset, but there was nothing. And I looked and I looked. And at the time, you were only kind of doing evening events. And I can't really justify coming all the way out to London just for an evening. And then suddenly, you started doing 2-day weekend events. And that's when I got in touch. You phoned me and you started talking about implementation, and that's what I needed. I needed help with that, because if I'm sitting here on the computer and I'm doing stuff, I may have done one tiny little thing not completely right, but it is I'm stuck. I can't get beyond it.
Mm.
And so if I come to a weekend course and I'm learning about whatever it is, and then we're doing it, because we're doing it, if we get that stuck, then there's someone there to help. And not only that, the mindset of having started something, if you don't manage to finish it at the weekend, you go home and you do finish it. It's not like, oh, look at these beautiful notes that I've got, and now let's start to put them into practice. And you start and you look at it, it just suddenly becomes all too much. And you go, oh my goodness, where did you say we need to start? And I'm not sure about this. And then of course your notes stay as notes, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And I didn't want that to happen anymore.
Thank you, Caroline, for sharing. So now to wrap up, this is actually the first interview where we interview one of our GTeX members, and you will hear it now that we are adding another episode every single week where we interview some of our top members within the GTeX community, in particular our lifetime members. And it is an opportunity for you to get to know them and also to learn from them, because their level of expertise and experience, like you've heard from Caroline today, is top notch. So to wrap up, Caroline, if someone wants to get in touch with you, someone wants to learn how to to connect with you, or if you have a free training that you can give them, where they can go.
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook. That's quite easy. And you can find me on LinkedIn. So you can connect with me that way to start off with. But
which is Caroline King. Facebook and LinkedIn, Caroline King.
Caroline King, yes. Now, I do have something a little bit special, which I developed last week. And as you know, I have a structure that I use when I do my talks, because I've gone through that with some of the GTeX members and they use it. Now I've revamped it and it's even better than it was. CJ's done whizzy things with it, so it even looks fantastic. I've also added a few things into it so that it's going to help you also deliver what it is you're putting together. And I've done the structure because I know how many speakers get hung up about, oh my goodness, where should I put this? What order should it be in? How do I start? What should I be putting in? And so on and so forth. And by the time they've tried to work all of that out, it gets to be their talk and they haven't even thought about how they're going to deliver it, which is a shame, because we now know from today that if you deliver it really, really well, you actually give exponentially more value than any other speaker, which is why you get to stand out. So you can get this as a download, and I'm going to tell you what to do with that in just a moment. Then there's something a little bit extra. So the instructions of how to use the grid is there, but if you now plan a 9-minute Facebook Live, and you go and do that Facebook Live and you tag me into it, I will then watch it, I will make some notes, and then I'll be in touch with you to organize a 30-minute consultation call, and we are going to give some feedback on your delivery. So that is my offer to everyone, and it's all free. So you get the download for free, you do your Facebook Live, I listen, and then I'm going to help you with it in the free consultation. So that is the offer. So where can you get the download? Well, you need to email me. So you need to email me at caroline@sovereignspeakers.com.
So it is Caroline@sovereignspeakers.com. You will find the link for an email address here in the show notes. So make sure that you scroll down where there are all the social media links of Caroline. There's going to be also her email. And I've seen people that came through Caroline courses, and I've seen our members going through her courses. This is our official speaker trainer within GTeX. And it is for a reason, because she gets results. And that's the only thing that matters for us at GTeX. Can we give results? Yes, brilliant. So welcome to the team. And Caroline is the best person that I've ever met to get you to become an incredible speaker. So make sure that you do your Facebook Live, download the 9-grid system, and connect with Caroline for your consultation. Caroline, thank you very much for being here on our show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for having me as a member in GTeX. And not only that, because I now work with you as well. Thank you very much for that too. Your support, both you and Ben, has been absolutely amazing. Your knowledge is great, and it's really helping me and my business really move forward. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's my absolute pleasure. And for everyone who is listening right now, or maybe you're watching it, watching the video, thank you very much for watching and listening. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button right now. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're listening on iTunes, subscribe on iTunes. Maybe you're listening on Spotify. Follow us on Spotify wherever you are listening this incredible interview from. Make sure that you follow us so you don't miss any other episode. I know that button is calling you. It's calling you right now. Yes, that one. Click. Awesome. Well done. And then if you like the work that we do, there is only one more thing that you can do for me. It would mean the world if you can leave us a review. If you can go on iTunes or the other social media platforms, and you leave us a review, and then it will help us boost this show, and the iTunes or the other platform will automatically show it to more people. So that would mean the world to me. If you want to give me a big favor, please leave us a review, 5-star, of course. And then I will thank you. I will personally thank you. I read every single review, so I will personally thank you for your review. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. From Simone and Caroline is everything. Remember that together we grow exponentially. I'll see you next time. Ciao.